My name is Rony Ortiz. Nice to meet you finally.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Houston, Texas,
Okay.
but I'm about to move to New York. So I'm a writer. I do creative writing, and I'm going for my master's at NYU in creative writing in Spanish. Um, I'm about to publish my first book. It's coming out in September. Uh, it's called El Amor y Otras Cosas. It's a poetry book. And for also my side job, I work at a restaurant as a buzzer, and yeah, I mean they're
Wow. See, I mean, you
transferred.
do a lot then. You keep
Yeah,
yourself busy, huh?
I keep myself very busy. Yeah. Um,
I want to concentrate on you and the work you do because it's really like awesome. I read some of your poems and some of your writing, and
Thank you.
it's
Appreciate it.
really like inspirational, and the way you write really puts an image in my head. Um so
Thank you.
as a way to like introduce you, do you mind reading like the El Alma del Poeta that you have on
Yeah, no, for
in
sure.
your about in your website? 'Cause I think that really like kind of
Yeah,
defines you, right?
yeah, definitely. So you want me to read it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me about. Okay. Entonces, el alma del poeta. El alma del poeta es un canvas abierto, con pinceladas no estructuradas. Es un proceso de creación continuo. El poeta es un viajero sin rumbo fijo que se enamora del mundo y de cada paisaje crea escenarios distintos. Un arquitecto de emociones, un artista, un observador, un amante de espíritu indómito. El poeta soy yo.
I love that. I love
Thank,
that. It's powerful.
thank
So
you.
so tell us a bit about that. That kind of
So,
defines like what a poet is and how you see yourself. So tell us more about it.
I see the soul of a poet as being someone that's very sporadic. Not sporadic, spontaneous
Hmm.
is the word. So when I think of poetry, I think of not necessarily having to stick to a certain rule or a certain way on how do you do poetry, because I think poetry just flows. When I'm writing poetry, I don't think about like, oh, I'm gonna structure this poem this way so that that's not my style of writing.
Hmm.
I'm kind of more like, okay, it's sort of like when I write, this is gonna sound completely weird, but
Nah,
like
go ahead.
it's just like everything starts flowing all at once. It's
You're in
kind of
the
like,
zone, right?
yeah, I'm in the zone,
That's right. No, yeah.
and it just kind of like flows. So I think that sort of describes also the personality of a poet,
Hmm.
um, which can sometimes be very dangerous. And I
How
say
so?
this because you know you're writing from strong feelings, right? So you feel the passion, and you feel things
Mm.
strongly, heavily. Sometimes it burns
Hmm.
because that's sort of like the passion of the poet, right?
Right.
You're feeling and you're dealing with these experiences in life. So um, I think some are more outrageous than others, because I've had some friends that are also poets and writers and whatnot, and yeah, they've told me about their lives, and when I see their writing, it just makes sense.
Right, right. Just it's a reflection of their lives, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you're a guatemalteco, you're a
Hmm.
poeta, filósofo,
Hmm.
escritor.
Yeah.
Do you think like poets are all are always philosophers or not always? Like in the way that they take approaches, or it just depends on the way they approach their writing?
Mm, I think it all depends, right? Because let's say, for example, I think some people are just um they kind of take an instance and they're very good at portraying what's in that instance, not necessarily so much analyze it.
Right.
and it was kind of hard because when I first was writing my manuscript, one of my professors at the University of Houston was like, look, I see what you're trying to do here, like like you got talent and stuff, but you're putting your mind and your heart together, and you can't do that if you're writing poetry. I was like, huh.
That's interesting, because I always thought, like, as a poet, that's kind of like what you did, right? You kind of like you pour your heart out into like a poem, you know?
Yeah, no, but you pull your heart out, but basically, you cannot overanalyze, because the way I was writing before is like I was sort of like trying to analyze what love was.
Okay.
It's that philosopher mindset, sort of like you're always gonna have to like, when I studied philosophy, right, they always teach you how to like think critically of everything, everything that you're reading, everything that you think, everything, like all the ideas are put to test. And that's the one thing I love about philosophy, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to like me reading a book or a novel or whatever, I tend to be very critical of like what I'm reading, because all of my books have annotations all over them. Because I just like to analyze things, like, and take them apart and see them for what they are. So if I don't like a book, I'm gonna go hard on it, on my critique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I go hard on the things that I do, but the thing is, it's kind of like taking that piece by piece. Now,
Yeah.
when you're talking about human emotions, it's very hard to actually analyze them, because as humans, I feel like we're intelligent, irrational beings, because sometimes we do things out of emotions, and sometimes those
Yeah.
emotions don't necessarily have to make sense. But that's the thing, that's the beauty about the human nature, right?
Right, right.
Because we, say for example, we do crazy things, crazy stupid things for love, or because we're angry, or because X or Y reason. And then sometimes we do things knowing they're wrong, but we felt at the moment we had to do those things.
Right, right.
So say for example, it would make no sense for me to be angry in the morning when I have a bed to sleep, I have like a house and whatnot, but I haven't had my coffee. So like,
I
you
feel
know,
that. I feel
yeah,
that.
but I tend to be, I'm not that much of a morning person.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just need my coffee, and as long as I have my coffee, I'm good. But
You gotta have a
before coffee,
cafecito.
no. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So walk us back a little bit. Before I guess because you're doing a lot of your poetry right now, right? And you're writing. Before all that, I know you worked at like a Spanish station and just like in Houston, right? And
Mhm.
walk us through like how you came to decide like I'm going to do poetry and writing as like I get full time, really, right?
Yeah. So okay, basically, I always had this idea of writing poetry. Well, it didn't start out like that. So I lived in Guatemala up until I was 13. So I was born and raised there. And then, when I was 12, I wanted to start a punk rock band,
Mhm.
and I used to play the drums. So I was the one writing song lyrics
So you were a writer from the get-go.
from the get-go, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, once I moved, I had to like sell out the drum set and all, like leave everything behind. So I got nothing. And then the only thing that kept me like sane was writing.
Mm.
And the thing was that I didn't have many friends at that time. So instead of like looking out for like different outlets, like some people usually do drugs or other things,
Yeah.
my kind of outlet was like literature. So I began reading a lot
Mm.
when I was like 12, 13. And that's how like I came to do poetry. So then, I always had that interest because, the most interesting people that I've talked to, they're always like people that read a lot of books. And they would tell
Yeah.
me these like crazy stories and how they traveled places. And I was like, man, I want to be like that when I grow up.
Right.
So, and I started reading. And, the years come by. And then I originally wanted to be a lawyer
Oh, okay.
because I always had that idea of like, I want to change the world, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then, as I studied more, because, I went to an advisor when I was in a community college.
Okay.
And I was like, what do you recommend me studying if I want to go into law school? And an advisor told me you should do philosophy
Oh, okay.
because you will analyze a lot of rhetoric. You'll analyze all these arguments. And I was like, okay, I kind of like this. So during that time, um, I was wild. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I had a time where I was a party animal.
I think we all go through a phase there.
Yeah. No, but I got kicked out of school twice.
Okay.
So yeah, it
To
took me a
that
while
extent.
to that extent. It
Yeah.
it took me a while to graduate. And then I was when I got into the University of Houston, I saw this like flyer up on the wall that said bilingual reporters needed for a
Okay.
club. I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I kind of like went into like journalism without really studying journalism.
Nice.
I kind of joined this organization, and once you join, it's called EGMN. It stands for El Gato Media Network.
Oh, okay.
So basically, I did a lot of networking there,
Mm.
and a lot of like former alumni are now working for like news stations. There's a guy that works for ESPN. He just covered he covered a Super Bowl.
Okay.
Um, I have a lot of friends in Univision, Telemundo. So at the time, I had the opportunity to work as a street team member. That's what they call it, and it's
Okay.
kind of like the marketing guys that are handing out like stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, on the streets
Yeah,
giving all the stuff.
yeah. But like I worked there for a while, but then I made some good connections, and I got to meet all the like reporters, the anchors. Like it got to the point where I could walk into the newsroom and everybody knew who I was,
Right.
and I needed no pass or anything because they knew me.
Yeah.
So and I always kept on like my writing this side, like always kept on writing no matter what, because like I feel like that was one thing that was solid about me. I always
Mm.
knew like I wanted to be a writer, not so much a lawyer anymore, because then I saw what went into it, and like I was very ideological, I would say,
Okay.
in the sense that oh yeah, I'm gonna go change the world, I'm gonna do these things. The ambition was kind of like there, but
I'm similar.
yeah. So the thing was because this my family sort of like uh has this side of like one side of my family was in the military back in Guatemala,
Okay.
and the other one were full out blown Marxist revolutionaries.
Yeah, no in between.
None between, yeah. So that sort of created like a lot of idealism. I remember when I went to Toronto after I got my green card, because I was for some time I was undocumented for a very
Yeah.
long time, and then once I finally get my green card, one of my cousins from Toronto calls me and he's like, "Hey, come over here. We got you." So he sends me like the ticket and everything. And then I go to his father's house. First thing I see is when I go to his father's house at the time, it's a picture of Che Guevara all of the manifesto, the Communist Manifesto, Das Capital. Like, I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
shit is real.
Did you say anything when you saw it, or were you just kind of like taken like aback, or you just like,
I was just kind of taking it back. I was like, hi, Che.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
uh,
it was wild. Yeah,
something different to walk into,
yeah,
huh?
something different because usually growing up, my dad never really talked about that because he was like, like it was something that was prohibited back in Guatemala
Yeah.
back at the time, and he almost got killed once because you know, they I think they confused him with somebody else. So
Oh
they,
wow.
they pulled him out of this car and everybody was like pointing a gun at him. And then somebody yelled out, "That's not him." And everybody left. But
Wow.
my dad told me he was like shaking once they left
Right.
because he couldn't like. And there's also like I wrote this story. It's on my blog. It's
Hmm.
called Jacarandas. So, and it's based on a true story. So, where my dad is the main character in that story,
Yeah.
and it's about a time where he had to hide somebody from the guerrilla
Mm.
in a hotel because he was working as a bar manager in
Okay.
a hotel in Guatemala. And there was a general that would come by every time, and then he found out that there was somebody from the guerrilla there. So
How
my
do you,
dad,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's yeah,
That's
it,
wild. I definitely relate in the sense that it's like, was that hard for him to tell you these stories? Like, did he tell you these stories like when you were much older? Because my dad was also in the Guatemalan military. And he doesn't really talk about it unless like I ask him. And even then it's just like some stories of like he was in a they were in a tank, and then like a claymore went off, and it just like took off the tank, and then there was a grenade thrown in, and he got
Jesus.
like the pieces like the shatters, the excess right of it like blew up
Mhm.
like close to him. So I mean he's had some stories as well. Like,
Yeah,
how was that experience for
I
you?
mean, my dad, he he was honestly, I don't think he like shied away from telling me stories.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, he wasn't per se in the military.
Hmm.
He wasn't in the military. He had like a lot of friends in the military.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it was my grandpa that was in the military.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, because my grandpa grew up as an orphan, and then he
Hmm.
worked in the military for some time, and then he was out. But then my dad had a lot of friends in the military, and obviously part of my family was for full blown out Marxist revolutionaries.
Yeah.
And he told me like one time, because the military was looking for my part of my family, so he snuck them out as a coyote
Wow.
and, and took them to Mexico, basically risking his life
Yeah.
for the family. Well, even though he didn't believe in the communist cause, because he told me like the story where one of my, well, um I don't know if I would call it Theo anymore, but well,
Family
I'll,
friend, you call it
yeah,
yeah.
whatever. One of my Theos took him to like this communist meeting, and my dad was like, "Why are you taking me here? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of this. Like, I want to have nothing to do with this."
Right.
Because my dad was kind of like sort of like in the middle. He was like in the middle, literally, because during the 80s, he was actually friends with Vinicio Cerezo, like
Okay.
president
Yeah.
back then, and he even knew like his lover and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, because he would like my dad loved cars, so back then he had a Camaro
Hmm.
that he would lend him so he could take like his lover.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So he was close then.
Yeah, he was close. He was like, yeah, just take my car, whatever.
Oh man, imagine that.
No, no. My dad had a lot of crazy stories, so yeah,
Oh
it's only
man.
natural that I pulled from him.
Yeah, right. I was gonna ask you, so is this where you pull like your inspiration from, just like real life events and just kind of what you're going through either at the time or maybe you've some experience?
Yeah, definitely. Most of the things that I write, um, especially when it comes to poetry, um, they're from personal experiences, strong emotions I've felt, maybe stories that I've heard over, and then I just kind of, that's the thing with fiction too. So
Yeah.
I like to write short stories here and there, like just taking the fiction, changing things up a bit, but that's the fun part of it, the fiction.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, most of what I do is based on real life. And there's a quote from Gabriel Garcia Marquez that I really like. I'm just gonna say it in Spanish because I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think,
we speak
yeah.
English and Spanish here. Go.
Okay. La vida no es lo que fue, sino cómo uno la recuerda y cómo vive para contarla.
Mm.
So, it's not, it's how you
It's how
remember,
you, yeah, how you live your life, right?
how you live your life and how you live to tell it. So I think that's the beauty about writing, right?
Mhm.
That you sort of can reinvent yourself and or rearrange certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, you also want to stick to reality, but so it's good to it's like an endless sea of options that you
Yeah.
can go about when writing a story or writing poetry. I think the thing with poetry is I feel like it's sort of like very strong sentiment behind it, and it's sort of like, because I don't think my poetry is too long.
No, I read it and it's not that long.
Yeah, it's not that long, but the thing is, I think it sort of has like a message
It definitely does, yeah.
in each one. Sometimes I don't even like think about the message, or maybe I'm just asking myself a bunch of questions, like as a philosopher part.
Right.
I'm not so interested in like leaving people with an answer,
Mm.
because I feel like,
I like that. I like that. It's kind of like they can interpret it right
yeah,
in their
they can
own way.
interpret it their own way. I'm by no means uh like a person who knows everything in life. Matter of fact, I'm I know nothing according to like Socrates. The only thing I know is that I know nothing. I dislike people that sort of have this idea of like, oh, I'm a writer, so like you need to respect me
Yeah.
and you need to listen to what I have to say. I'm like, no, you know, that the fact that I'm a writer doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I might be good at one thing. That doesn't mean I know. Like, there's a bunch of other stuff I don't know. So I
Mhm.
feel like, uh, as a writer and as a philosopher, I do not have all the answers. However, I think it's important to ask ourselves the right questions. You know, so like, I'm not gonna tell you what's good and what's bad. That's up for you to decide. Because I'm it by no means like I hate those sort of like moralists that
Mm.
are like, oh, this is what is right and
Yeah.
this is what is wrong, and if you do this, you are bad or
Right.
something like that. And I'm just like, man, fuck you.
Yeah,
Like,
right. It's like, how are you gonna tell someone like
yeah,
to be a certain way?
or to live their life.
Or to, yeah, how are you gonna tell someone how to live their life? Like
Yeah,
that's their life to live, not yours. Like,
exactly.
so I
It's like,
noticed. Oh yeah, go on.
yeah, no, it's just like, I hate that because I feel like I can, like, I can give you advice, of course.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna uh let you into like a full path that's gonna be damaging for your life. But at the end of the day, it is you who makes the choices. And I feel like sometimes we lack that understanding, because sometimes we just see people and just kind of like we're quick to judge sometimes without necessarily understanding how they came to that position. So, and that's what I'm saying. And that's kind of ties back to what I was saying earlier. We're intelligent, irrational beings.
One of the common themes that you write about is love, and one of my favorite poems that I read was from like 2019, which is like "If Love Was a Plant," because I thought that was like a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Do you mind like reciting that for us?
Oh no, I don't mind.
I definitely want to have you reciting as many as I can, because it's such good. Like I love your writing style.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I tend to not hear that a lot from my English poetry.
Really?
But yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I like both, so.
Thank you. So if love was a plant, would you let it wither? Would you nurture it each day? Would you let it bloom? Or would you let it die? Alone and forgotten. Do not leave our love. What took a lifetime to build slowly decays and fades away. At the leaves in the fall, everything inside dies. The iridescent coloring of fall is so beautiful, yet so sad. And in this pain I dwell. Would we withstand, or shall we fall apart? Have my prayers reached the skies, or are yours the same as mine? Bombarded by my thoughts, I stand, left alone in despair. My love mourns. You seem to care. At times you forget. How do I heal my broken heart, shattered and splashed? At this ray of thoughts cloud my sight, and all I see is me, picking up the pieces you left. Will our love wither or withstand? You tell me, my love. Yeah. So
yeah, tell us what you were going through in this stage of your life when you were writing this.
I was in a bad relationship at this point. And it's funny because she was Guatemalan too.
Okay.
But she spoke no Spanish. Completely different mindset than I am. So let me tell you a little bit about my
Tell us.
political views and whatnot. So, by definition, I think I would be called a liberal. I'm okay
you
with
and I
that.
both, I guess. Then.
So, obviously, yeah, I feel like I'm more understanding of certain things, and I don't have such a problem with like gay rights or anything. And I tend to look at things very different. Now, the girlfriend that I had at the time was somebody who was from Guatemala but had no Guatemalan culture because she had been adopted.
Okay.
So she grew up in a very white conservative household, like pro guns, pro Trump, pro everything.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I was kind of like in this relationship going back and forth. And then she told me that love was like a plant. And then I was just kind of like, And I kind of started thinking about it at that time.
The philosopher you are.
Yeah. I was like, if love was a plant, then, because you have to nurture it, you have to let it grow. But I think it's a kind of like a mutual thing, right? Because it's once you're in a relationship, it's kind of like 50-50. You give some things and the other person gives some things as well.
Right.
It's not a one-way street.
Mm.
But that was sort of like what I was going at the time. And I was like, is this love gonna withstand? Because that's the thing about me. Like, I think I fall in love too quick sometimes.
Yeah. Or would you say you're a hopeless romantic?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. Like it's weird, right? Because I feel like I'm a hopeless romantic, but at the same time, I can be very cold.
Okay.
And it's because a lot of people tell me that, like, oh my God, you're like you can be very cold, but you write this really nice things, but you're an asshole. And I'm like, I mean,
I guess that's just the human nature in all of us, though. I
just
think
the
we all
human.
have that side, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, yeah, I think I'm a hopeless romantic, but the thing is, I tend to fall in love pretty quick, and all these emotions that I feel are strong. So I try not to like fall into it, 'cause, uh, for me, there are certain things that will trigger me
Okay.
in such a way. Like in this instance, I think I was looking for love, or I like the idea of love. I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily in love with this person.
Okay.
And differentiating that it's takes a while. Because sometimes you might be caught up in lust,
Mm.
and it's easy to confuse it with love. And it's like, oh yes, like this is so good, this is happening. But then you kind of sort of like take yourself back and you're like, okay, is this really what I want? Is this really love? And I mean, I don't tell anybody just to like not do anything, and be saints or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
no, like if you're gonna enjoy yourself, enjoy yourself. But like the thing is, also be mindful of your mental health, of the other person's mental health,
Yeah.
because that plays a lot into like um I feel like that plays a lot into today's society, right? So we're bored, we can download Bumble, Tinder, you name it,
Right. Right.
and boom, you have the options right there
Mm.
available for you. But it's not so natural.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do things quick, they tend to end pretty quick too.
Mm.
I feel like a lot of people just kind of like are with someone because they feel bored, they feel alone, or have these things that not
Just want to
necessarily,
have like a fling, right? Yeah.
yeah, a fling, or they're not necessarily in love. And sometimes when I talk to people about love, like the reaction is like, they get pissed, like if I just insulted them.
It's weird. In this era where like everything's online, right?
Yeah,
How do you differentiate like lust over like love? When all you see is kind of the lust part on social media, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Because I mean, I can see a girl shaking her booty, or I don't know,
Right.
something like that. Yeah. So I think love comes uh very naturally as human beings that we are. Um, even though we have these things like technology and all these things, at the end of the day, we're still human. So, one of the things that is kind of confusing, I try not to be too involved in my Instagram or social media, because I read this book called Digital Minimalism.
Okay.
And it basically talks about how, our brain reacts, and how we as humans are sort of these social animals.
Yeah.
So, whenever we post something, we like something, and so we get a response back, there's a
Endorphins.
dopamine that,
Yeah.
yeah, and it makes you think like you're actually interacting with people, but
Mm.
you're not. Like it's not that real human interaction, because when you have that real human interaction, it's completely different. I can DM a girl or talk with somebody on Instagram, but it doesn't compare to like having a drink with somebody, or like going out for lunch, or like doing all these things,
Yeah.
because it's different. But I think that's one of the things about love, right? Yeah, sometimes we might believe we love somebody, or like this person is unique, or this person is what we dream for, or what we dreamt for. But in reality, we don't really necessarily know that person that well.
Mm.
We kind of ignore the fact that that person is just a human being like us, with many flaws, but just like us. So whenever you're in love, estás como pendejo. Like, you're just like
Yeah.
watching everything goes with butterflies and shit. And then once you actually get to know that realization, like who this person is and how they act and how they actually interact with you, then you sort of take that choice. And then you can decide, like once you like see a person, and then you're like, oh, like despite their flaws,
Yeah.
you're willing to put in that effort.
I think that's key, the effort part. I think that's what a lot of relationships lack.
Yeah.
And it goes back to your plant poem.
Yeah.
If love was a plant, right? Like you both have to put in the amount of work. You
Yeah.
both have to water the plant, right? To grow
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's a lot of relationships lack. It's a 50-50. It's not one takes all, right, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to transition into was just your other poem that I liked a lot,
Mm-hmm.
which was the intricate universe, because I think this really highlights like your
The philosophical.
philosophical side, and you can recite that for us if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind. Absolutely, man. The intricate universe. Yeah. Connected among the stars lies the connection of our puzzle universe. Some watch from afar, others dream of being there, while others rest above the clouds. How many centuries have there been? How many stars can I see? Through trial and error, we gaze from afar, wondering how it all came to be. Far, far above, farther than the clouds, farther than the sun. We discover there is more. Everything then seems in disarray. But what do we know? Where do our paths cross? Where do our souls meet? When we gaze above, where do we stand? Are we all connected? Is it all relative? Where do we intertwine? In this beautiful, intricate universe where we all collide, I hope to find love closer than the stars. For those who wonder, for those who gaze, I hope you find everything that is so vast, so far, yet so simple, so close. That is my perception of the universe. So when I was sort of like doing this poem, I was kind of thinking of like how small we really are in this universe, right? If we look ourselves, like if we're able to look farther, we realize that we're just tiny specks, particles in a vast universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, there was this philosopher, Bertrand Russell, who said that once you make your interests wider, you become more happy, because you don't necessarily focus so much on the self,
I
but
like
are
that.
focused on like being part of this universe, as opposed to like it's just me.
Yeah.
We tend to be very individualistic, especially in Western culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we just tend to be like uh everything's about me, everything's about that, and that's sort of like one of the things I see a lot from people now. A lot of people tend to be very self-absorbed in their own image, or whatever it is that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So sometimes they tend to look down on people because it's like, oh, I wouldn't do this or blah blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I mean,
We're all just these little specks on the earth,
yeah,
like
yeah, we're these little specks on
like
Earth.
you're
Like,
no bigger than I am, you know what I mean? Like
and that's the thing that I'm saying though. See, I'm a writer, and you're a podcaster, and you tend to talk a lot about finances
Mhm.
and investment stocks and all that stuff. I'm trying to learn about that. That's a skill I don't have, but you do have.
Mhm.
You know, maybe like that's what I'm saying though. Like a lot of people, you know, I feel like we come to be so superficial sometimes,
Yeah.
and people just tend to put other people down. And I was talking about this with a friend because, like, say for example, she had a lot of friends that were engineers,
Okay.
and they would tell her like, "Oh, you're studying Spanish, like you're stupid."
Mm.
So it's like, I mean, they might be able to build things or do these mathematical equations. However, they cannot tell you how they feel.
Or speak Spanish.
And
Right.
or leave that alone, or how to communicate well on an email.
Mm.
That's a skill a lot of people lack.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, oh, you can do all these things, but you cannot do these simple things. That's because IQ is not measured in a way.
Yeah.
I might have a huge mathematical IQ, doesn't mean my musical IQ is super high as well.
Yeah.
Or, it's just, the people, I think we always, as humans, and that's where I come back to these things.
Mm-hmm.
We always try to classify, analyze, and put things into categories.
Right.
But as humans, we're more complex than that. And that's what I like about human interaction,
Yeah.
because we're just we're unpredictable in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you might get to know a person and you might guess their reactions or whatever
Yeah.
after you know them for a long time. But I feel like at the end of the day, that's the beauty of it, like we have this we can change. So a lot of people have told me that, like, no, we cannot change. That, we always remain the same person. Yes, maybe that's another philosophical debate though.
Yeah.
Like, are we the same, but like, but change? Have we never changed?
Mm.
Or can we evolve over time and become totally different person than we were before?
See,
Is our
I'm on that end of the spectrum. I feel like we're always changing.
and that's something I had a discussion once uh with a friend, and she was telling me like, no, we cannot change, you're always going to be the same person. I'm like, I disagreed strongly with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like our experiences shape us, and we become to have different understandings of things,
Agreed.
and that comes with maturity as well. But you know it's going to take a while.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that's part of what I love about podcasting as well, is that human interaction, getting to meet people, especially when I do interviews,
Yeah.
and people like yourself. And I love to bring on all types of people, especially uh, yourself, very different from all my other guests, a writer, poet, philosopher. But I love it because, I love to also, aside from learn like financial things,
Mm-hmm.
I love to expand like my
Your
mental
horizon.
capacity and just view of the world, because I think the
Yeah.
more we do that, the more that not only we grow, but we can apply as well. Like I can apply any type of thing to back to like finance. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
can apply those things in real life skills, just the way that you perceive the world. And
Yeah.
and that's what I love about your writing too, is just that's how I like you give us these visuals, and it gets you thinking, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do. Think. I just like to think in all different ways.
I agree. Like, I mean, I think that we come to like the society focuses more on like efficiency, getting shit done, right?
Right.
Schools, they always spend more money on math, science, and technology. Because these are the things that generate money, and these are the things that sort of you know, drive sort of a nation forward. But then they tend to forget the humanities, of course.
Yes.
Because and I think humanities are very key and essential to our understanding of human beings. Because we're so focused on progress, but we don't necessarily focus so much on ourselves. And like that, and that's where I kind of see a lot of these mental health problems playing out. I see a lot of people tell me they have anxiety. A lot of people tell me they have depression. And they sort of like put it under the rug, or are taking medicine or pills, and it's kind of like, okay, like I'm going to work and be efficient now, and it's like that's not healthy.
Right.
And it's not going to help you. And if you try to like drown it in alcohol or other substances, it's just not good. I feel like we sort of like praise this culture of like, oh, I'm in a hustle, I'm busy, and I'm like, no, one should always take time for oneself, and just take a moment, breathe, and be thankful for what you have, because everything's going so fast that you might not, you don't know if we have this day.
That's one of the biggest fears is moving too fast in life, that I'm not going to have like enough, that I'm not going to notice. Like my little brother, I have a little brother, like maybe I should be spending more time with like my little brother instead of doing more work on like some certain thing, because he's gotten so big already. Like I was like, you were a baby like yesterday. And it's just like, it's important to kind of like you said, like slow down and just kind of live in the moment at times, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's easy to get distracted with these things, because you have all these options available, like say Instagram, TikTok, or I do not own a TikTok. I sort of refuse. I'm like, no.
It's addicting. Don't do it.
Yeah. And that's the reason why, specifically, because it's addicting. I hear a lot of people are like, oh yes, I've seen so many videos and I spent like an hour watching like TikTok. And I'm like, ooh, no. Like I'm already trying to cut down on Instagram, because I feel like that's the thing that I use the most. Not so much Facebook, because Facebook, honestly, I just post memes. There's nothing serious about my Facebook.
Memes from the family to the family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
So I want to, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your favorite or your top writings that you want.
Okay.
Could be either in Spanish or English, doesn't matter.
So there's this one that actually it is being read, like my professor used this poem for one of his classes.
Oh, okay.
At the University of Houston, when teaching literature.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this one's called El Hyphen.
El Hyphen, okay.
So it goes like this. Nací allá, where the flowers bloom and the volcanoes roar. Allá, where the nights light up y está el cielo estrellado. Pero vivo aquí, where ice is watching, por aquellos que no tienen documentación. Vivo aquí, entonces, algo así como decía Facundo. No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá. I've tried to make sense of it all. I live with the memory of mi querida Guatemala, as I love to roam the streets of Houston. Vivo aquí, es cierto, y hablo los dos idiomas. I can switch like that. Para los que les guste y para los que no. I don't care. I live in the hyphen. Guatemalan American. Nunca me olvido de mi tierra, pero me queda claro el presente. I know where I live. Yo sé quién soy. I am he, quien escucha salsa y le gusta el rock. I am he, who reads and writes en inglés y español. Yo soy el quien dicta sus pasos haciendo estrofas en dos idiomas, con el palpitar de mis venas. Yes, escribí en Spanglish, because I can. I switched on you now. ¿Qué me vas a decir? That I can't write like Márquez, que no puedo escribir como Hemingway, que me queda corto el idioma? Or are you happy I can write in both? Sea como sea, these are my verses. This is the hyphen. Living in the city, recordando siempre mi bella Guatemala.
Wow, that's easily elevated to my favorite one. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love that, especially because you did it in English and Spanish, and that's like the
Yeah.
whole concept. Tell us about that.
Well, so I taken this class at the University of Houston, and we sort of talked about the identity of the hyphen. And one time I actually made a poll on my Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and where I asked people what they thought about Spanglish, and the response was usually Spanglish is stupid, like people who speak Spanglish are stupid, blah blah blah. However, studies show that when you're actually speak Spanglish, it's because you're very well aware of two languages, and you're doing the code switching. And code switching sort of requires certain grammatical rules that are unspoken.
Mm.
So it's kind of like when you kind of code switch, you tend to say half of your sentence in English and half of it in Spanish. You cannot just do like a fourth Spanglish and I don't know. It's interesting actually how
Yeah.
the human mind works. So the when I was getting all these messages about this negative connotations of Spanglish, I was like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I am obviously I was born and raised in Guatemala, and a lot of Latin Americans tend to look at the Latinos here like, oh, these Latinos are trash,
Mm-hmm.
because like they can't even speak Spanish, or they can't even speak English, because people in the school system bastardize them. It's like, if you're speaking Spanish, why are you speaking Spanish? And then
You're
it's
judged by
sort of like,
both too, you know?
yeah. And then it's sort of like you go to the university and they're like, oh, you need to speak another language because then you get paid more.
Mm.
So I'm like, man, this is so much bullshit. So when I started getting all these negative responses, I was like, I can't be okay with this. So I'm gonna start writing something in Spanglish. And I was kind of like sort of taking back my identity and like the things and who I am, kind of like an exploration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I live here, but I don't feel from here. And I'm from there, but I don't necessarily feel from there.
Yeah.
So
I think
like,
I can relate with that. And I feel like a lot of undocumented people can as well.
yeah.
And
So
that's just
that's
the whole thing. Sorry. I was gonna say
no.
that's just like the whole thing with too is just like if like I'm under DACA, I'm a DACA recipient and a lot of undocumented people too, and or that have been like, like yourself as well, that it's just like if you get deported or sent to your home country, it's just like, well, all we know home is here.
Mm-hmm.
Home is there too, but now we're strangers in that home because of the way people will like perceive us,
Exactly. I
So
mean,
yeah, go
yeah.
on.
No, I mean, it's just something very unfortunate, right? Having these conditions to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I don't ever shy away from, because it's like, yes, now I'm a citizen, but I cannot ignore the fact that a lot of people are suffering from not being able to see their family, or going back to their country, or coming back and forth and having this duality like I do. So when it comes to immigration, I'm biased, I'm an immigrant.
Same.
I'm always gonna support immigration because sometimes I see people like even like own Latinos being like, oh yeah, but they need to come in the legal way, and I'm like,
I know. I hate when I hate that. I hate that.
and it's just like
So
it
unfortunate.
really angers me because it's like there's no understanding from you like what led these people to move out of their country. Everybody's looking for a better life. It's not they didn't intend to come here, especially you know well kids. When I was 13, I didn't go on a plane. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna move to the US because I want to.
Yeah.
That was my family's choice. But I was just going with it. And that's the thing though. It's like I feel like we need to be more understanding of that. And that's something I'm never gonna like ignore because I feel like it's part of me. It marked me in such a way that I cannot ignore that fact. Now, what I want to do, sort of create that bridge between the Latinos from Latin America and Latinos here, because there's obviously a lot of like differences. When there's differences and there's similarities, but Latinos here tend to get the short end of the stick. Always, either you don't know how to speak English well, you don't know how to speak Spanish well. That creates, or that's what people say. Not that I'm saying that. So that creates a lot of how could I say this?
Animosity, kind of. Okay.
Insecurities, and that's why a lot of Latinos tend to drop out of high school.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're not worth it, they're not intelligent, and that is a lie. Because I took a course my last semester for school, talking about like education, like bilingual education.
Yeah.
And talking about the difference between L2 learners, which are people that mostly Caucasians that they learn a second language here, and the difference between teaching heritage speakers.
Okay.
So basically, a heritage speaker can understand what you're saying orally. You can tell them something and they process the information.
Right.
You tell an L2 speaker and they're like, what? But the thing with that L2 speakers have is that they have a more grammatical structure.
Okay.
As opposed to heritage speakers. You give them like text or stuff like that, and it's a little bit harder for them.
Yeah.
They can understand everything, but it just takes a different learning approach. So you're kind of like teaching them backwards.
Yeah.
As opposed to L2 students. And sometimes the system tends to favor L2 students over heritage speakers. So that's where a lot of some people are fighting for that, like for those changes in education and the different learning approach for this heritage speakers.
Any other things that you want to share before we close out? And then you can share just where people can find you, your website, and all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the last things I would like to share is just that I feel like we should be more understanding as human beings. The fact that I can do some things doesn't necessarily mean I'm better than you. So I would rather leave with a message of unity rather than division. And I think that's key in understanding humans. So you can find me at my blog. It's RonyOrtiz18.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Rony O Andrade. I'm always there. What's I gonna say? I don't know. Shoot me a message.